Hello. Well, the sun has finally set, and the room is almost dark here, but thanks to being able to up the gain and the exposure, I can make it as bright as I like. So, the modern marvels, huh? Our techno toys. It's a lot of fun. Okay, several things have come to me and from different directions. And one of them was a very good catch that I noticed in one of the comments someone left about karma and this not being a time where karma applies anymore. I find that I wasn't accurate in all cases for all people who would listen to my words. I was speaking to the light beings. So I'll step a few paces back and speak now to everyone. Karma is continuing and most certainly applies to those who will be remaining in 3D. It's the most sensible, most logical, and actually the most loving way to get beings' attention when they're at the lower levels there of vibration and frequency. And so, I like to say God will start with a feather to get your attention karmically. And it's only when we don't pay attention and don't get the hint and don't get the message and don't respond, we either keep avoiding the issue or stuffing the feelings or not wanting to face it, or perhaps facing it and making poor decisions, whatever. Um, and so eventually we find a situation like the one here on Earth right now, where it's a cosmic 2x4 that's being applied and things are breaking down and falling apart. And this is necessary, it's natural, and it's actually beautiful when you consider what is it that's crumbling? And isn't it time for that to crumble? Things that don't have ethics and integrity at their heart cannot stand the higher frequencies and vibrations uh, that would crush and destroy something of a lower frequency. And there's no need for that. So we have the blessing of karma as a means of the universe communicating with each soul, each one. And so there are many of us who will choose to stay in 3D. And that's not a negative comment, and that's not a bad thing either. We go where we're ready for, where it's best for us, and where in truth our inner being desires. And some of us will stay with 3D not because we haven't learned our lessons yet, my friends. We can't judge. Some of us will stay with 3D because they're the avatars. They're the ones who have descended into incarnation just for this. All right, so I find it supremely best not to judge and not to believe thoughts that come our way about others. Our business is the self. It's ever and always the self. And we're in the process of learning, in my opinion, how the outside is created by the inside. And if we will just faithfully see to the insides of us, we'll see that manifesting. And there are many who are sufficiently awake, that have their inner eyes sufficiently opened to be seeing this. You hear them say things like, there's no such thing as coincidence. That's a recognition of the wisdom that's operating from behind the scenes. I don't know who and what the creator is or are or whatever, you know. I don't often let my mind touch the idea of God or source or the isness. I let that be a big unknown bubble. I think that's the best way of it. There just aren't words that we can use, and any that we use, I find what we're doing is projecting. Just like in the Old Testament, they projected an angry God, as if. Anyway, not wanting to get off into that particular morass or swamp, I'll continue. So karma is still the reality for 3D life. And so those of us that are transitioning up and out of 3D are the ones for whom it no longer applies. Is that you? I don't know. Do you? That's what's important, that you know. But if you feel that's not fair, there's no justice in the world, I think I'd have a good look at that. And just keep watching it. See what's acting there with those kinds of thoughts. See if underneath there isn't the desire for some revenge. If there isn't some real hurt and pain under that. And when we get to the bottom, it's just almost always fear that will be found. So you could start out by looking for fear and see if it bears fruit for you. The important thing is you and your development, the development of your understanding, the increasing clarity that comes. And it does. It comes to you. It comes to each of us. It's funny how we are one. We are that fractal that is really one thing. And yet, how we're so uniquely the individual as well. And it's even funnier how we're both of these at one and the same time. And this is only perceived from higher dimensions, from inner vision. All right, so slip down into heart. Just slip down in there. If it helps, create a little cathedral in your heart, a little chapel, maybe even a little woodland scene with a bench where you can sit, or whatever. Create something where you can visualize and it will help you stay centered, basically in the middle of your chest. I don't know why, but there's a magic to that. And one day we'll understand all things. Right now, for the most part, all I can tell you is what, not how or why. And I'm happy to share the what. Okay, so karma does still apply. Now, I've shared this idea before. The video isn't about this, but I do want to plant this idea in those that are receptive. I talk about embracing the dark side. It's really a call to balance. We've been taught that we have to be angelic and perfect, and we have to be good and not sin, and then we'll get into heaven, else we'll go to hell. You know, we've been fed all this pathetic nonsense. And it's left a mark. Well, that's okay, because those are beliefs, and we can choose to reevaluate. In most cases, we were very small when we were being programmed this way. We can choose to reevaluate and eliminate completely beliefs that no longer work for us, that just don't feel right, that don't seem right. And so I want you to be in heart and be in the oneness for just a moment and try to be open as you hear this. This is a play. We're not really the body or the mind. We're not really here. This is a representation that we've got going, almost like an avatar, if you will, that we're operating. That's actually more accurate than thinking that I am this. Okay? So, get the sense that it's roles that we're playing in all of our lifetimes. They're all going on right now, and we have access to all of that. All there is now. So, in every now moment, anything and everything is accessible and available to you. If you have a dear loved one that you think is lost because their body has died, think from heart. That one is still just as alive as they ever were. Not less, maybe more. They're in their inner, their deeper reality. And you exist there too. Okay, I didn't mean to get off into this. Here's what I wanted to say. This is a play, and we audition for the parts and the roles and the bodies that we use. And the whole structure is love. Nothing else, nothing less. That encompasses literally everything. If there's a hell, God is there too. It's not possible to be any other way. You can't restrict God from anything. And that's really kind of ridiculous thinking. We don't question it because of our programming, but if you look at it, it's pretty bizarre to think that God can be restricted from anything, anywhere. God's not one-sided either, if it gets down to that. Now, we don't know why evil exists. If it does, I mean, remember, it's just live spelled backwards, or live. All right? I call it ignorance. For the most part, when you see someone doing something cruel or stupid or foolish or downright awful, for the most part, it's ignorance acting. It's just not wise. That doesn't make it devilish or evil or whatever. It's just unenlightened, okay? Now, let's take a further step back and look at this. Overall, when you go through difficult times in your life, and there's not one of you that can't look back and find a pretty hellish time to look back at. And if you look at yourself before that time, and then if you look at yourself after it, you will see a net gain. Yes, of course, there will be some scarring, well, not necessarily. Not everyone gets scarred as they go through these things. There could be. There will be perhaps some residual pain. I don't know. But the thing is, if you're willing to see it, there is a net gain to your soul. This is why hindsight being 20/20, or perfect vision being when we look to the past, that's why it's perfect vision. Because we can see the beauty, we can see the learning, we can see more of the purpose and the point a little bit further down the road. And we can see this in our children. Anyone who has or has raised children can know this. And frankly, all of us can know it because each one was a child. So what if some of the bad guys are really good guys playing those parts? Now let that penetrate for a second. I don't know, maybe that's what this video is about. I never know, folks. Okay, what if? Now, we're just imagining, and I'm going to throw some ideas out that are pretty worthless, like the idea of ranking beings. Okay, that's pretty dumb. But just to illustrate a point, let's say that we're all given a grade, a ranking, based on our frequency number. And that's very linear, but it can be useful here. Okay, let's say some of those that are farther along than most of us need a challenge. And let's say we don't know what their testings are because we're not there yet. All right? Let's also say that it's necessary for the hand of karma to fall on this world where we are. There's a general waking up that has to occur, and so much has happened. So many things have come to wake us up, and it might have nudged a few of us into awakening, but mostly we're too heavily programmed, and our minds are so occupied with all of the media and the noise and the techno gadgets and so on, and just endless thought. All right, so mostly it hasn't gotten through to us, and so we're past the baseball bat stage and we're into the 2x4 stage, and hopefully we won't have to do the railroad tie thing. But anyway, let's say some really high light beings volunteer to play some really bad guys. Anything's possible, right? All right, now, let's say you're one of them. I mean, folks, even just to be a you or a me, we had to forget that was the ticket price for coming into a body on earth right now. You know, that's the way it's set up right now. That in this act, in the play, remembering isn't a part of it. So they even more would have to be cut off from who and what they are, or they couldn't play the part legitimately. It would be play acting. Okay? We have to expand and really, really, really expand and realize that we don't know everything, that we know basically nothing, and that there are greater hearts, greater intelligences, that there is cosmic stuff going on here. And that, have you ever contemplated infinity or eternity? I mean, can you imagine? Can we begin to imagine what's possible? It's like the old conversation between the second grader and the PhD, you know? There's only so much the child can comprehend about certain aspects of the guy getting his doctorate. On a heart level, they're perfectly equal. And she's got a thing or two to teach him, and that's a fact. It always is. But we're not talking heart level here, are we? We're talking the externals of the play, the props, the stage, the setting, and the parts. And so there are beings where they're the PhD and we're the second grader, folks. There are cosmic beings beyond anything. For all we know, we could exist as the brain, one brain cell of one of them. I mean, it's time to drop all sense of limit and limitation. Let that go. Mankind is not the be-all and the end-all. Mankind is not even the most intelligent species on the planet. Mankind is not at some great peak or pinnacle of development even. All of those kind of things are so very relative. And it's good to let the boundaries and the barriers all drop and just play what if. So, I'm not saying for sure this is the case, but I am proposing to you that I find it entirely possible in a cosmos built and founded on love and nothing but, that this would be the way of it. So, in all of our arrogance, thinking that we're so much better or greater than someone who's misbehaving terribly, let's not be in such a rush to come to that judgment. How about instead we be open? I say that a lot of dark beings are going to wake up. Not all of them. Just like not all of mankind is going to progress past 3D right now. There's a part of us that wishes that would be the case. There's also a part of us that wants to believe in Cinderella and Sleeping Beauty and fairyland and everything lives happily ever after. It's a part of the programming that's going there. It's a very one-sided thing, which I suggest we all drop. When we see it in action, just let it go. Don't be, no, it's not that you're being unrealistic. I don't know what it is. Words are tough, especially English, to try to cover subtle nuances and things. But it's not so subtle saying the bad guys could really be the good guys, some of them. Not all. But just be open. Because you see, I remember pondering at one time and thinking, oh my God, because you see their karma is very, very great at this point. Everything that they've put forth, they've got coming back to them. And in the embodiment, in the body that they're wearing around now, they don't know this, they don't own it, they don't recognize it, but the being knows. The being knows perfectly well that what goes around comes around. And that in the end, they're only harming themselves. All you can do is hurt yourself when you do evil or wrong. And so they've got that coming back, and I was pondering the depth and the weight of it and the agony of the situations that they have created for other beings, not just mankind. Look at the animals in the scientific experiments, the people in the experiments. And so they've got all that coming back to them. And I was pondering, what kind of a soul is it that could take it coming back on the return current? Can you imagine the sacrifice? Because you see, assuming that they would be a light being of considerable magnitude, their light that is, then they would come into it before incarnation with eyes wide open, knowing not only did they have to play the badass part, but then they had to deal with and accept the return energy from that. And that's even harder than just, having to play the role of a jerk, an unenlightened one. So, let down all barriers. Let's let all judgment cease. And let there be respect for all life. Again, that doesn't mean go be pals with your neighborhood reptilian. Those guys have got a bad rap. A bad rep. And we'll find that out later on. They're a really advanced race, and they know all about caring and sharing. It's just that they don't do it with us. They do it with each other. And so, okay, let me move on. Maybe, oh yeah, this video is probably long enough already, and here I have all these other ideas. Okay. Uh, this is enough. I'll come back and make another. Love to you, my friends. Be open. Be open. Enter heart. It's a whole nother world in there. Good day.